So good afternoon to everyone. We are excited to join you for this afternoon session. And let's see, I think people joining us. So let's see how many more will join us. Very cool. I think we also have others from other sources. Fantastic. All right, so good afternoon. My name is Katka Letzing. I'm the CEO of Kickstart, and I'm very excited to host this session together in collaboration with SATW and other organizations on behalf of Kickstart with the focus of the technological developments and trends that matter in cybersecurity. I will have really a lot of exciting speakers, and we really also hope to go through Q&A with you. So maybe if you can have the next slide, please. Maybe a little bit of the housekeeping. So just want to tell you that the webinar is recorded, and we also, due to the different time zones that we work in, we will be sharing that afterwards. So just so you know that, as well as if you have specific questions, please share that in the Q&A, and we'll make sure to ask those questions. At first, we'll have a program of the presentations. And if we go to the next slide. Very good. So Kickstart is an open innovation platform focusing on connecting corporates and organizations together with later stage startups to focus on deep tech and creating meaningful partnerships. Since we started in 2016, we helped to lock over 170 deals, and our alumni has raised over 800 million Swiss francs. If you go to the next slide. All right, again. If you look at kind of the collaboration, we include over 90 stakeholders in Switzerland, but also abroad, working really on the open innovation. And as you can see, they're coming from public sectors and private sectors, which also be included in some of those topics during our panel today. And next slide, please. We focus next to fintech and cybersecurity and insurtech also on edtech and new work, food and retail, health tech, and smart city, with all of that in connection to deep tech, as well as circular economy, and with a focus on sustainability. And if you go to the next one. I'm really happy to introduce today the panelists. So maybe invite them to join me now. So Umberto Annino, who is the president of the Cybersecurity Advisory Board for SATW. Welcome, Umberto. Then we will have Ben Nolan, the head of business development in Statice. Welcome, Ben. And then we have Nicolas Germiquet, who is the initiatives manager in cybero, which is actually Speedboat initiative of Mobilière. And if we move to the next level. So at first, what's going to be in front of us is that we will have a presentation from Umberto to speak about cybersecurity map and kind of the ecosystem. After that, we'll have a presentation from Ben about what Statice does and what is the background also of his experience. And then, of course, we'll have Nicolas sharing a little bit through pitch also cybero. And then after that, we will go through a moderated Q&A. Again, just as a kind reminder, you can share your questions in the chat and we'll make sure to ask those questions also for you. Very good. So without any further ado, I was hoping to invite Umberto for your presentation. Umberto is, as I mentioned already, a director, the president of the SATW Cybersecurity Advisory Board, but he has had a lot of experience, over 25 years of the experience in ICT sector with many different organizations and boards, and has been really focusing on helping in the way of the field of information security, has been as a product manager, as well as been serving in the academy as a lecturer for IT risk and management and information security in various schools, as well as Umberto is a principal security consultant in InfoGuard AG. So Umberto, thank you so much for joining us, and I think we'll give you a stage with your presentation. Thank you so much. I believe Umberto, we may need probably unmute.
As usual, the normal problem. So again, I'm going to quickly introduce the mandate of the Swiss Academy of Engineering Sciences, which is the Schweizerische Akademie für Technische Wissenschaften, the SATW, and the deliverable that we prepared in the advisory board in the recent months. So what does the Academy do? It's basically a network or kind of think tank of experts in this case engineering sciences. There's also other academies in the network, so there's other sciences covered in other academies. We're covering the said engineering sciences, so technology is one of the main focuses here. So cybersecurity in our specific case. The advisory board has been founded in 2018, and it consists of couple of high-profile experts from academia, from private economy, and those people are very well networked in politics, in the industry. So that's what enables us, together with the academy, to reach out to those decision makers at the same time. So the Federation, the Swiss Federation, has given the Academy a mandate to basically identify industrially relevant technological developments and inform politics and society about their importance and consequences. So that's the mandate of the Academy. So that's what we do in the advisory board for the topic of cybersecurity. The Academy has a high credibility, is politically and commercially completely independent, which is also for me personally an important requirement or specification for working pro bono on this advisory board. So one of the deliverables we prepared, as said, is this cybersecurity map that we came up with. It's on the webpage of SATW, and it's basically our instrument to convey the message or the content of specific important topics that we identified in cybersecurity, in information security, that we think in politics and in the common public require a deeper understanding to enable people to adequately decide, for example, on elections that we recently had in various topics on this behalf. For example, electronic ID or electronic voting and things like that. So basically, we thought it's an important thing to convey what is to be understood with cybersecurity. What is cybersecurity? What does it entail? So that's how we came up with this cybersecurity map. So basically, it's on the website. There's a couple of icons there. We grouped them based on what the challenges or what the requirements are in the specific topic. So basically, is it required to decide on things, on how to pursue them from a national perspective, or is decision making basically required, or is more regulation required in certain fields, or is there a need for investments in specific topics? So that's how we distributed the topics on here. As you can see on this Venn diagram, we have some cross coverage of the challenges ahead. So basically, the cybersecurity map consists of a couple of fact sheets on specific topics. We're going to see the topics in a second on the next slide. We have you can please go back again quickly. We explain the topic. We articulate what the state of the art in that specific field or topic is at the moment. We identify challenges, and we basically recommend the need for action. It's translated in 3 languages, and it consists of 12 topical areas that we will see on the next page, please. So these are the topics that we covered here. Of these topics, we think that these are the main topics to be addressed in the coming years in the context of cybersecurity. The sequence has no prioritization, so it's not that number one cloud computing is the most important topic. So this is just a list of 12 topics. We did not weight them, so it's not a sequence or a prioritization. The numbers here, it's just a simple numbered identification here. So cloud computing, of course, being almost everywhere and apparently being the future of computing services. Privacy and data protection is one of the big challenges, as we can see at the moment, the fight between Apple and a couple of other companies going on at the moment. Of course, the digital assets, cryptocurrencies, is one of the bigger topics that may also require some regulation, probably at some point. Electronic ID, digital identity, e-government, distributed ledger technology in general. That's disconnected from cryptocurrencies specifically. So the technology and the digital assets, we separated that. The information warfare, I personally and some other people on the advisory board, we don't like the term information warfare, but the entirety of fighting countries fighting each other in the cyber space is an important challenge ahead. The complexity of technology ever increasing, and the dependency, as we have just seen last year, also dependency from technology, what that means for society. Artificial intelligence as well, quantum computing being the more exotic topics, the Internet of Things, and in the end, the last topic here on this list is the national sovereignty that Switzerland and other countries also want to define in the cyberspace. So on the next slide, we'll see an example. This is the dependencies on technology fact sheet. So we explain what we see in there. So what the kind of dependencies we see, what that means for society, accumulation of risks, more complex risk situations, and a low understanding of technology in general in the general public, and also on top management positions and top management levels in the economy. So that's and then politics also. So this is one of the fact sheets, and then it follows up with recommendations in this field. Next slide, please. So basically, we recommend to identify the infrastructures that are critical for society to work, and then develop strategies to, on one side, minimize or distribute the dependencies, better protect those infrastructures, as we've just seen in the recent news. So basically, at the moment, this is also development. The cybersecurity topic has absolutely reached mainstream media, and society is aware of this. This was not the case 5 years or more back. So where cybersecurity and IT security was not an interest of the general public. So this is just one example of a fact sheet on those topics. So you're kind of invited to check out the website and help yourself with the content of the cybersecurity map. This is one main initiative or main deliverable that we produced. We are now pushing this to politicians who are interested. So basically, it's not mandatory for them, of course, but if they're interested, we make ourselves disposable for them and available for them to basically exchange our views with the decision makers and policy makers. And as well, SATW supports startups and That's why we work together also with Kickstarter Accelerator in the field of startup support.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Umberto. There will be also questions later, so let's keep going the presentation. So thank you. And if you go to the next slide. I'm hoping to introduce a next speaker, which is Benjamin Nolan, who is the head of business development for Statice, which is cybersecurity scale-up based in Germany, even I think active in also in other countries, if I'm not wrong. And previously, Ben is I would say, I know him a little bit personally, and I would say he's quite a guru in business development and absolutely amazing ideas in the field, and also has been engaged with Priori Data and CEO and much more, as well as Estella. And Ben, the floor is yours. Please tell us a little bit more about you and Statice, and looking forward to having you.
Thanks very much, Katka. And I'm just going to caveat everything that I say for the rest of today with, I am definitely not an expert on cybersecurity. I was very happy to see privacy as a topic on Umberto's map. My expertise is very much there. And so I will try and keep my comments to that topic and leave the rest for the experts. But yeah, with that said, my background is 10 years of business-to-business data-based startups. And now I lead the commercial team at Statice. What Statice does is we provide big companies with a way to use data safely. And the way that dovetails nicely with cybersecurity is one of the big risks that cybersecurity poses is the loss of data or the changing of data related to individuals. And what we do at Statice is we offer effectively a tool that will learn the characteristics of sensitive data sets and then create fake data sets that have the same characteristics. So for example, if you think about transaction data at a bank, we would create new customers and new transactions that would reflect the statistics of original data and be safe to use across the organization, meaning that you don't need to have real customer data in the hands of thousands of employees. You might be able to reduce that just to a much smaller number and without impacting the ability to have a data-driven organization, because that data, because it's statistically very similar and structurally very similar, it can be used for machine learning, for product building, for partnering with external companies, for transferring across borders. And it means that you can, in a GDPR compliant way, or I'm not sure exactly how the Swiss privacy law works since the latest update, but also generally compliant with other privacy laws, able to be using your data safely. And I'm super stoked to be here on the panel. Thanks, Katka, for inviting me. I'm really looking forward to learning a lot, and hopefully I can contribute something as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ben, for sharing. And then if you can go to the next slide and invite Nicolas, please. Nicolas is joining us, not as, I would say, last or least. I'm super excited to have you as a third speaker. We know each other because you're also in our program in the past, and you're leading the project with Cybero, which is Speedboat and Mobilière. Nicolas has a lot of experience from basically previous experiences in Mobilière, started the project Check and Connect also, which was also focused on cybersecurity, I would say, topics, especially connected to SMEs. And he has been leading additional other initiatives also in Mobilière. So we're really excited that you could find the time to join us. And Nicolas, if you can tell us now a little bit more about the initiatives and about yourself, really appreciate it as an intro. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Katka. Hi everyone. Yeah, I'm Nicolas, and I'm not a cyber specialist, I will say. I have more technical background, but not on the cybersecurity. At the beginning, I was more so on the system engineering, and now I lead the Speedboat for La Mobilière Cybero. What we do with Cybero, we saw in the last time in the Kickstart Entrepreneurship program that the small SMEs are not aware of the risk they had with their business and in connection with the cybersecurity. And it's because we started this initiative. And now with Cybero, we have a value proposition. It's really, we want to help small business to understand their risk and suggest concrete steps they can take to improve their business protection. And this, we try to do that on the easy way, I will say, because we saw that the technical aspect for for the SME owner is not so easy to understand. And as soon we discuss on the technical level with these people, they send us to the IT partner, and it's not what we want. We want really discuss directly with the SMEs. And to do that, what we do, we have built just a little framework. And so we are based on a quick survey where we have 11 non-technical questions. And from that, we generate a dedicated risk profile for each SMEs. And at this time, we could advise each SMEs with a dedicated measure that they can direct booked and implemented. What we saw also that is very important for the SME to understand the business impact, and this is why we defined 4 important domains, and the profile is based on this domain. We have so the service interruption, the reputation damage, legal consequences, and the data theft. It's really these 4 domains where we are sounding and we are helping the SMEs. What is also the measures that can be delivered from a selected IT provider partner. That means we are working with a dedicated partner, and they can so access to the platform. And also, sure, we want also sell or place or placement for our Mobilière internal product. What is also interesting, Mobilière is actually working on ecosystem, and cybero is part of the SME ecosystem. It's really an important point and a strategic point for La Mobilière. The role from cybero in Mobilière ecosystem is to raise the awareness and encourage also new customers to choose Mobilière's product and services. Sure, we don't build something only for to be good, but it also need to have a most value for us. And what is also very interesting, the topics for cybersecurity at La Mobilière is very important because we are currently working on new product. It's not possible to speak about that, but it's really new product will arrive, and it's really interesting for us. And cyber is really a central product for the side of La Mobilière. It's also interesting for us because we hosted customer sensitive data. And we have also for our customer, but it's also a very important topics for our company because we need to manage this security, and we have also a huge team intern. They are working on the cybersecurity topics. So from my side, and yeah, I enjoy to be there, and I give you the stage back, Katka.
Fantastic, thank you so much. So thanks to everyone for your presentations, and maybe if you can join me now for everyone for the panel discussion. So how it's going to work is that I will ask the first questions, and then we'll also see on the questions from the audience. So the first question I was hoping to ask all of you, there's been, let's say, a lot of rumors and a lot of things that we see in the news all the time of the changes, especially in the last 15 months. I would say maybe probably in connection, of course, to COVID, but also I would say in the ecosystem, what's happening in overall. With the topics, could you maybe share your experiences, like what changes do you see, the trends, and maybe also Umberto for you in connection to the cybersecurity map, maybe if you can address that. So whoever wants to start, please jump in, and we'll have to definitely hear your insights.
I can go from a very narrow perspective, and I think what Umberto mentioned in his presentation is exactly right. I think really in the last few years we've seen way more awareness, and a lot of these cyber topics that were almost more innovation tire kicking than real projects 3 years ago are now really core business objectives. And I think we saw that when we as a company were at Kickstart, we were kind of at the start of that wave where we'd been going to market with big companies in finance and insurance and healthcare for more than a year before we came to Kickstart. And that for us was kind of the first bridge where it was like, oh wait, these people are actually really thinking about privacy and data security in a production context, rather than just thinking about it as, okay, this is something that's coming with GDPR or with other privacy law. So I think it's definitely gone from something that's been kind of a nice topic to be able to raise at the table to being a really core business competency. Yeah, that'd be my 2 cents.
But if I can extend something, what we saw is really incorporate business. It's really a trend and active, and the people are working active on the topics. But for my part, when I'm working with small SMEs, it's not always the same trend. And it's really, I mean, the huge challenge we had, because the corporate are working on it, they understand the risk. But for the small SMEs, it's more so just actually an issue, because they are working on the topic after a damage and not before. And I mean, we need to make a difference between the 2 segments, perhaps corporate and SMEs. It's just so what I would say also.
Cool, thank you. And Umberto, can you maybe share insight, like how is that more from the public side, let's say from your view, from your experience, and also on the topics you've been working on?
Yes. So about COVID, or COVID specifically, or the global pandemic has shown, well, basically 2 things. The dependency on technology and supply chains, and how this is all connected together. So a little outage of anything technological, be that internet or communication lines or systems that are not available, shows the dire consequences that society has to put up with. So we're absolutely reached full dependency on the technology and internet, computers. So that has shown that, and also what it has shown is how much we are not prepared to handle that. For example, the complexity shows when the big cloud service providers, for example, Microsoft or Google or Amazon and the others, if they suffer from an outage somewhere in the world, typically the entire world feels the consequence. So if Microsoft has an outage in a data center in the middle of America, it's not only affecting that region; it affects basically specific Microsoft services globally, and that can be a huge problem nowadays. And also how the countries were prepared to handle the pandemic. So it was not a technologically induced pandemic, or it was not a virus spread of a tech virus, but it shows how society has to prepare for such events, be that biological viruses or also other outages or problems that may arise. So there's lots to do there to prepare oneself. So on the national level, also on the personal level, of course. COVID specifically, what we've seen is that more systems got exposed, more systems, more networks for the home office, for home working, for remote access, which as well showed the problems and the low maturity that many companies have in the field of cybersecurity, and that was immediately abused by criminals. So the cyber criminals nowadays are very up to date and very quick in reacting to whatever is happening in the world. What we see is the rise of the artificial intelligence, whereas it's basically in a more specific detail, it's more machine learning than like real artificial intelligence, but still. This is basically also it's handled like it's a holy grail and then brings solves all the problems of humanity, which is clearly not the case. So we are what we see there is that things are used that are not fully understood. Same goes for Internet of Things and the ubiquity of computers and internet. So basically. What the industry does is computers are put into everything, cars, you name it. Everything is smart nowadays, but the security point or the security requirements are not considered. So security by design and privacy by design, as I'm speaking, these are two of the main drivers for me that I see in the future, which have not been addressed in the last decades. So this will be one of the biggest challenges that we're going to face in the coming years, designing systems securely on a conceptual level, and not trying to patch and then work around problems that only are identified later on. So that's basically my take on that.
Thank you so much, Umberto. When you were speaking, we had first question, or one of the questions from our audience. So I will read it, and any of you please jump in. So the question is, what's your take on parametric security versus detecting what's wrong and quickly react, like Exeon is offering?
So shall I start? I can.
Sure.
What we see as the developments that also the politicians should start to address. As I said, well, privacy by design, security by design. This is anyway going to bite us in the backside, as it's doing now. So the problems we have now, the attacks that are going on now, are basically caused because systems are not inherently secure. So politicians should, well, I don't know, focusing on that topic. That's a very complex and complicated issue. I expected more from the requirement of privacy by design in the European data protection law, which will also adapted in the upcoming Swiss data protection law, but the privacy by design requirement in there is not being fully enforced yet. So I expect more to come from that side. For politicians, we think that the topic of information warfare, information operations, the disinformation campaigns is an important focus topic. So how to deal with fake news, fake information in the internet, e-government and the digitalization of governments and processes. That's also a huge topic, and also addressing the complexity issue and the national sovereignty on cyber topics.
Cool. Thank you so much, Umberto. Anybody else would like to jump in with additional comments? All good?
That one's a bit far out of my wheelhouse.
Fantastic. So we can go to the next question then. So when we look basically kind of, I feel like we hear a lot of things that goes really wrong in cybersecurity. And so if you look maybe from the positive level, what are the solutions that you were really impressed about, let's say in the last 15 months? It can be from different initiatives, or it can be for examples of different systems that you would like to maybe showcase as best practices, what it will be. And this, I would say, can go, of course, from the startup scene or the corporate scene, or also public sphere, to whatever you would like to prefer to share from. Love to learn from you. Anybody who is available to answer.
I mean, again, very limited scope there, but I think some really important topics. Again, backing off of what Umberto said about privacy by design, is making sure that you don't stop your organization from innovating. And to innovate, you do need to have access to personal data, but at the same time, making sure that you're safeguarding that data. And I think particularly, like as a good example in Switzerland, there's a company called Decentric that are working on basically secure computing, where two parties or more can share their data together, do a computation over the top of it without necessarily giving access to the original data anywhere. And I think initiatives like this, where you're still enabling innovation and enabling cooperation around data without necessarily increasing the risk surface of what you're doing, is really important. And I think more initiatives like that enable safe collaboration and safe innovation without necessarily opening up additional risk surfaces is probably the key topic.
Thank you, Ben. Anybody would like to add?
Yeah, I can also agree because I'm working in a corporate actually, and it's really the innovation and the security together to merge is something sometimes difficult, because you want to innovate, you have no new system, you want to try something, and as soon you need to take some internal data, we have like a bridge, and Decentric is really just a good example what they do on something like this. It is really a good help for some corporate, I mean. But we speak also over technological issue, but we forgot sometimes the people. Sorry that I come with that, because I mean we can have the best solution we have ever, but you have always the human factor in the between. And the huge risk come from the human factor, and it's also that we need to teach and to bring the awareness for these guys, that they understand, and they understand also what is behind the cybersecurity. And we have the best solution I had, but the issue can always for the human. And it's also very important, don't forget that. It's not only because you have a good technological solution that you have safe, you have also always a human factor behind that.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I should have mentioned as well, is like the presumption that there's always auxiliary information available with which someone can attack your system. And this is something that we get questioned a lot about at Statice, because what we do is create safe data, and people are like, okay, well, how do you make the data safe? And what does safe actually mean? And then we have to explain, okay, well, because you do have sources like Facebook, like Instagram, like data dumps that you can just pull up off the internet for free effectively, you need to always assume that someone is going to have information outside of your organization that will make it easier to attack you. And I think this assumption that it's not just your data that matters, but also anything else that can be joined to it is super key. Coming back to the human point from Nicolas, like everybody puts so much information about them on the internet that if you're safeguarding your customer information is not just about protecting exactly the information you have, but also considering what other information is about.
Well, what we see, I see in the field, or also as a common problem, is that basically the security baseline, the foundations are not consistent and adequately implemented. So most companies basically what I would tell them is to basically finish their homework before they start to implement more fancy or more modern solutions. So the foundations are that's the most important part, and we see that it's always the source or the cause of most attacks and problems and incidents is that certain foundational security controls have not been put in place or comprehensively implemented. So this is a very big issue. So it's not complicated. It's not rocket science, but the challenge is to comprehensively and completely carry it out in the entire company with all exceptions and every exotic and special case. So basically the normal situation can be covered easily, but all the exceptionary situations and use cases, they have to be covered as well with security, and that's where the efforts are hidden, and that's where many companies are reluctant in following through, because that also requires investment, requires hiring more people, of course more cost, and that's where things go south, because as soon as it's for free, then it's fine. But as soon as you have to invest lots of money, because we disregarded the topic for the last decades, that's where the challenges are for the companies. They need to heavily invest in this topic, and that's where they are not really ready to do.
I have a follow-up question for Umberto there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually also for Nicolas. So we're talking about best practices. How do you go about, in both of your cases, how do you go about communicating the ROI of cybersecurity stuff to companies that might not have yet experienced the pain of it? Because I mean, you've got to justify that investment somehow. And I agree with you completely that people don't want to invest in it, especially once they see the price tag of some of these things.
Well, I'm making good experience with it's the school book approach. So what it's called risk-based decision making. So the problem there is to quantify the risks associated with cyber incidents to the management. That's the hard part, because it's very hard to quantify. In the end, the most valuable asset in cybersecurity or in information security being information or data, and putting a value tag on a record, that's something that's one of the hardest things to do. So it's an intangible asset that you're going to protect, and you have to put a value on that in order to quantify the risk associated with it, and that's the hard part. But if you figure out a way to convey the value of data, then you can more or less quantify the risks associated with that, and that's for me, that's the best basis to communicate with management, because when they see that the cost of not doing anything would be much higher than spending some money on security, then that's where they start to understand the value of security.
Thank you so much. There were a couple of questions, so I will jump in kind of from the questions maybe. Thank you, Ria, for your question for Nicolas. How much has your company changed in the last 5 years, in your opinion, in connection to cybersecurity topics?
Yeah, it's just crazy what has happened the last 5 years on these topics, because it was we built a lot of things. We built a cyber competence center for the business side. So that we can develop and propose cyber products, and it's really something like this. But not only that, it's also intern, because intern we build a security operation center. It's only for the Mobilière, but it's really important. We built also a CISO group, which is looking for the security and the governance, if it's good or something like this. But not only, we have also all what is about the data category and data classification and something like this is also really a step forward in the last 5 years. And when I look back, it's just crazy what happens for our site. Not just only for the product or for the services that we can deliver, but also intern how we manage this risk and how we improve our security intern. Just also, it's also the cloud solution now, which is really available for from some system intern by the Mobilière, and which at these topics really make a start for the cybersecurity, because we need to think in another way. Because before was a question perimeter or just object, and now we go from perimeter out to object. It's more like this. But it's really just incredible what has happened the last 5 years in the topic cyber intern.
Cool, thank you so much. All right, so if we go to the next question, there was quite a lot of interest also to speak about how do you see the different ecosystems? And so I know with Ben, we were really curious to hear from you, maybe how do you see the difference of the interaction in Switzerland and Germany? For Umberto, we're really interested for you to say of the development when you compare the public and private scene, like how is it different in Switzerland? And then for you, Nicolas, how do you see that in connection to SMEs? You already addressed that a little bit, but we'll have to also learn a bit more. So if you'd be willing to share, we'll love to hear that.
Yeah, I think I was kind of mind blown when I came to Switzerland the first time. I'm not sure if I have a really objective opinion, because my first Swiss experience was Kickstart. and you walk into the room and there's like 10 companies that know what they're talking about and have the right people lined up to actually discuss the topic, which in Germany is a bit different. I think there's definitely a lot of concern around privacy and around data protection, but usually it starts with the people who have the pain, who tend to be the user of the data, who's getting the no from data protection. Like, I'd like to build this model and I'm not allowed to do it. And they would come to us and ask us about it. And then the process to actually start a project might look like 6 months of, okay, first the user, then the user's manager, then their manager, then the DPO, then the IT security people. And in my experience in Switzerland, it was much faster. So time to actually getting to somebody who has a responsibility for cybersecurity topics was like less than a week. And for me, that was really interesting because Germans are usually such careful people, or as an Australian, that's the stereotype you hear before you move there. And it seems like this is quite a slow process there, whereas in Switzerland, it was really fast. I think on the implementation side, once in Germany, someone decides to do something and there's a contract, they expect you to have it done yesterday. Whereas in Switzerland, it seems to be a little bit more very fast to a decision and a little bit slower to implement. But I'd be interested to hear how you guys who work in Switzerland full time feel about that.
So from my perspective, I can't relate to other fields than cybersecurity. What I sometimes feel or think that in other countries, the approach to supporting startups and ideas from a more public administration side, from the government, I sometimes I have the impression that that's more systematic and more formalized in other countries than here. At the same time, there are initiatives in Switzerland to enable startups. There is public money available for funding that, which is used in a good way, and also the university, the technical universities are doing very good jobs in promoting spin-offs. So very many good spin-offs, in particular also in the field of cybersecurity, have been founded in the recent years from the technical universities. So I think there's a good ground to do things here in Switzerland. However, people are, as Ben pointed out, people are careful. So it's not comparable to the technology investment culture in Silicon Valley. So that's absolutely not comparable. So there are in Switzerland, it's rather private initiatives and associations that cover that topic. Basically the role model that everyone's looking at in cybersecurity is Israel. Israel has a full-blown network between government, private industry, and startup sector, schools, universities, to promote this topic, and it's really investing people and money into that. So that's basically the one and only reference that everyone orients to in the topic of cybersecurity. They're doing a very good job. They're really pushing it hard. So typically, you would go and see how is Israel doing it and try to adapt that in other countries or in other initiatives.
And from the SME part is what I saw actually on the market or something like this. For the small SME, I speak always from 1 up to 15 employees and so on, not the biggest and something like this. But the huge challenge is actually the money they want to give for this program. And also, the resources, because all the people are really just sometimes in difficult time. Also with the COVID, actually, it's not perhaps the best way, not for all, but the most of them is really difficult time. And also to invest money to improve the cybersecurity is not already in the priority. But what I will say, I saw also a lot of new initiative in Switzerland which are looking for the SMEs and try to help this SME to understand the risk and also to improve the security for the SME. That means I see a lot of potential, but it's really just to understand how we can help the people, and it's not too complicated because cybersecurity in general is complex, I will say, and that we can democratize these topics and make so easy as possible that the people are directly motivated to use it and have really the good meaning. But I'm really positive on that. But it's also why we are with Cybero on these topics. I mean, it's a huge potential, but it's not so easy. But we will do that, and yeah, I see a good chance for the future.
Thank you so much. There's multiple questions coming through. I have to say, I selfishly will choose the one that I think is really fascinating for everyone. What is your view on protection of players in the gaming industry? How should action be taken there? Is there more of a rise in the threats in that area in the recent years in Europe versus US? It came through social media for us.
I love this question so much. So I actually used to work in, so Priori Data, the last company I worked in, we built predictive models on data from apps and games, trying to understand consumer behavior. And I'm assuming you mean mobile gaming or console gaming rather than gambling with this question. And at least until Apple's recent tracking updates, security of your data if you play games is an absolute dumpster fire. Like the amount of information you can get on a user, at least up until 2018, like that's when my experience stopped and I moved to Statice. These games are transmitting your location multiple times per day in combination with stacks of other information, especially if it's coming from Android, like what music you listen to, what photos you have on your phone, all kinds of things. And from that, I mean, if I know where you live, because the phone transmits its location at the same time every day, and I know where you go to work, and I know which path you take to work, that is a privacy risk, and that is a huge problem. I mean, Apple is doing a lot to clamp down on what kind of information is being transmitted from these kind of entertainment properties, but it's still a bit of the Wild West. It's a lot better than it was in 2018, I think, but it's not great. Maybe Umberto or Nicolas, you guys have seen this topic as well?
Well, not directly. There was a trend a couple of years ago to use the gamification of security to motivate employees and companies to take security more serious for awareness exercises. So how to convey the message of how important security is to the general employee. So gamification was seen as one of the possible solutions there. It calmed down a bit. What I took out from there is that the most important thing in the end is motivating people to basically apply security. And for me, a very important part in there in that is to properly communicate the value and the purpose of security controls and security measures to employees or to people. So I will say that the first thing is you have to convince the people, then you have to adapt the processes, and then you can follow up with some technological controls and measures, and not the other way around. So the sequence is basically the important thing here. So communication, making sure that everyone understands what people are talking about. This is a difficulty in its own, because even among specialists, if you're talking about risks or threats or vulnerabilities, chances are that if you have 5 people on the table, there's 5 different opinions on what each of these keywords means. So as this is a very abstract topic, it's not easy to convey the message to a non subject matter expert. So communication and authenticity. So basically, and explaining the purpose of things to buy in people's opinion on it. That's I see that as the one of the most important parts. So Apple is actually, I think, is doing a good job in doing exactly what I was praising like 10, 20 years back, that companies need to understand that security and privacy, if they implement it in their business case, and if they communicate and that as a unique selling proposition, that's going to be one of the key USPs for the future. And that's exactly what Apple does. I'm not saying that Apple does it is a good company or ethically correct, and they do not collect any data. I don't know if it's true what they're saying, but they are using it for marketing purposes the way companies should do it. On the other hand, you have Facebook, who have absolutely lost credibility in this field, and they and it was perfectly shown as they were fighting the initiative of Apple in the privacy related topics in the recent months when they implemented some changes in their mobile operating systems. So basically, if Facebook fights you that much, you're doing something good in that area. That was my conclusion there.
But just so an extent of that, because as I saw, Facebook granted the TTC Labs. I don't know if you know about that. And they try to improve the transparency of the usage of the data or something like this. And it's also my meaning a good way to try to do the transparency of how do you use the data and how do you do that. And I don't say that Facebook do that good, but it's a good way to improve also the awareness of the people and the transparency in the communication. Because a lot of us, if you have a huge document with a lot of line, you don't see it, but you accept or you don't accept. If you can do that in another way and explain really what you do, this could be also a good way to do that, just as an extent.
Very cool. Thank you so much. I have to say there's more questions that, but we have just time for the last one. So I'll just choose maybe one from your experience. If you're giving one advice to individual to be safe and kind of consider privacy through your background and through your activities, what it will be? If it was one thing, then you had to choose. Now I put you on the spot.
Come on, this has got to be a question for Umberto. He knows way more about this than I do.
In simple terms, I'm not a saint either. So I'm often asked why I have a Facebook account, why I do this, why I do that, why I do even use cloud services or things like that. So one answer is I have to know basically. The ancient saying that know your enemy. So I have to know how things work in order to assess them, and that leads me to the recommendation for everyone. Whatever you do, make sure that you understand what happens and what goes on behind the scenes, and well, if you can, and then somehow make sure that you can trust the provider of the service. So it's okay to check out things, to try out things, install new apps, follow trends, but make sure that you basically really involve yourself in how this is working, and not just ignore and trust in whatever a company tries to sell or advertise to you. So that's basically my advice. So yes, try out things, but do it in a managed or controlled fashion as good as possible.
Thank you, Umberto. Anybody else would like to add? I think it was all good. Okay, let's take it as Umberto's kind of suggestion for everyone. So thank you so much. We are running out of time, so I just like to thank so much to everyone. There's definitely more questions. So I would like to say a special thank you to our speakers joining us from different places and locations, which we really appreciate. I also would like to thank so much to SATW team, Nicolas and Claude, which we work with every day. So thank you so much for helping us to also help with transparency and push about these topics. And then the next, I also like to thank my colleague Patricia, who is here in the background helping me working also on these events. If you can see the slide, maybe. And then the next one, we would like to encourage you, if you go to the next slide, of two things to save your date. So one is we are going to have next event, and we hope to do that in person in Kraftwerk on September 23rd. So I hope you can join us, which will be also with additional experts and quite actually VIP speakers, which will be revealing later. Next to also startups sharing their experiences and pitching their solutions on the technology advancements. And the second one is if you're a startup in audience and you would like to follow the path of Statice and Cybero and join our program, our deadline now is on June 1st. So I hope you can apply and join us on this journey to create meaningful partnerships in Switzerland and beyond. So, but to this, I would like to thank to everyone. Have a great afternoon, and we'll be sharing this recording also later. Thank you so much to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you and bye.
Bye-bye.